Hey guys, Akariss here. Welcome to another analysis comparisons video. Okay, so let's preface this a little bit for you guys that do check these out. I know these are pretty popular series. I enjoy doing them, and I'm sure you guys enjoy taking the information out of this. So, first of all, these are the units that I'm covering in this episode. Do note, I will not cover every one of them. And I may not cover them the way you expect me to. This is very important when watching these videos, because I noticed feedback from the previous one, which was Infantry Daggers, also high in demand, that I didn't cover stuff like Felicia or Kaze, very popular, maybe even viable units. But the thing is, I don't feel like that warrants enough of a discussion, those specific units, so I didn't include them enough to make a difference. For example, I mentioned Soth tanking in light. So like Kaze could work in Astra tanking, for example, but there wouldn't be much more to me besides showing you a sample build and saying he can tank in Astra, and he can do it pretty well. Or units like Jacob, who may end up having Refine in the future, so there's no reason for me to cover him at that time. So keep in mind when watching this video that I'm taking these units we see, and I'm making sure they get their roles and what I feel they're kind of the best at. I won't mention everything, because if I just go over every single unit, it will drag on. The video will end up being like 40-50 minutes easily. So I take the best of the best, give you some samples, you can adjust the builds as needed, and go from there. Everything is taken with AR, offense and defense into account. Top tier 27 stuff. Experience is usually credible from my own experience or other top players that I frequently have discussions within my Discord or elsewhere, and this is all pretty, it's all pretty grounded. I mean, I've been beaten by these strategies, I've played with these strategies, and I've seen others play with them. So take it with a grain of salt how you want to approach this information and if it works for you. Okay, with that being said, let's jump into it. So today's video is Infantry Blue Tomes. I actually haven't covered a Tome unit yet, so they're a little bit different, but they're not so bad. I think the most saturated is actually this one, Blue Tome. It might be Green Tome, I'm not sure, at least for Infantry, but there's quite a few here from the F2P options. I'm not going to spoil what I'm going to go into, but I'll try to cover all roles that I usually do, which is like support, carries, whether that's tanking or vantage, and AR defense as well. So, alright, first up, it's our boy Odin, Potent Force. Now, I actually did use Odin in the early days of AR, and I still think he's viable, even in most recent days of AR. But he is kind of fodder dependent. That's my problem with Odin. This guy needs defense res link, which is really difficult to attain to really shine, because he's a single unit that buffs 4 stats, and the thing about Odin, people forget this, is he has good HP and decent defensive bulk. Forget his attack and speed, he can probably soak chill speed, maybe, no way he's soaking chill attack, but the fact that he has a good HP stat means you can use panic pull on him, and because of his defense and res, you can pretty much have him soak however you want him to soak based on a boon. So if you want to be soaking like res, you plus res him, and maybe like I've given him Fort Res here, so he actually can soak chill res from many units. Keep in mind this is Astra, and for those of you that are not familiar with the sample builds, this is always with 2 mythics involved. That's another thing I saw in some of my previous videos. Always keep in mind optimal team comps are 2 mythics, 2 airs, or 2 nagas at the current time, 1 bonus, a carry unit, and usually a support. So that means you have flex for 2 slots, and that's why I've seen some things that didn't really make sense, but that's how the stats work. So you're getting, pretty much Odin's getting 10 defense here and 10 extra HP from having 2 nagas on the team. This may change in time as we get more offensive mythics, but this is our current situation. And yeah, so that's the thing I like about Odin. He can soak chills pretty well. He gives 6 to all stats to 1 unit, and that makes him a great support unit. I think the way you really want to use Odin is definitely offensively. So you have to smite in a unit. It's not like Khorne where you hang back. You smite in a unit. That unit either vantages a team or basically forward tanks, and that's the best way you'd use Odin for sure. There are some cool things you could do as well. You could actually make Odin into a support carry, and I haven't shown it here because I don't. It's really high investment, but you could probably try something like close counter vantage Odin on another team that's probably using like some sort of tank as well. So you have both like a tank and a vantage on one team. That's a interesting idea. I just didn't feel like I wanted to show it here because I don't know how useful a unit with 37 attack trying to vantage anything is going to work, but hey, blade tomes are blade tomes. So next up, Robin. Now, to be totally honest with you guys, I don't feel like you should use Robin, and I'm just kind of putting him here as like a token or of appreciation for you Robin fans. He's honestly not that great because, one, he needs to be on a mixed team comp, so being an infantry is already a problem since most bonus units, like the Asker Trio, tend to be infantry. So he's already harder to use, and his buffs are only 4 as opposed to 6 to all stats, and that's a problem. You're kind of missing out on 2 to all stats. So I just kind of gave him here as a token. I don't think he does it a little bit better than Odin. His HP isn't even as good as Odin, and his stats aren't as good as Odin either, even if you were to buff them up. I guess you could soak chill defense, maybe. I don't know. It's not really. Robin's just not in a good place, guys. I don't know. You can try to use him as a support, but you're still missing out on buffs. So this is a way to show you that yes, you can use him as a support unit, but he's just not in a great spot. Okay, next up, first carry unit is Mei. So Mei is and I didn't cover her weapon refines for this month because I just didn't feel like there was anything really to talk much about. And this build here can kind of show that. I'm still using Blade on Mei, and I think people should still use Blade on Mei because Mei is a high attack unit, and Blade is the way to do vantage sweeps. Her preference tome doesn't really help. As a support unit, she's still outclassed by Odin. Pretty much. I mean, Odin has better stat spread when it comes to soaking things. I guess you could use Mei also as a support unit, but have her soak chill attack instead. That's not terrible of an idea, but it's weird to use an offensive unit to support. But anyways, that's the only way I see her competing with Odin in that regard. Vantage Blade builds slightly different from dagger units, which dagger units have like defense smoke built in, so it really helps them out, whereas blade mages are actually quite weak to panic effects, panic staffs, panic manners and such. And I would have said that a max invested Mei was pretty good because she reaches 56 HP. However, panic manner just recently was able to go up to level 6, I believe, or level 5. I think it's level 5. And that's actually a big problem because now it's 60 HP threshold. So a blade mage that runs into a well-guarded panic manner that you can't snipe means that this is less consistent than I would have liked. A lot of units that I probably mentioned previously that reach over 60 HP now, stuff like Matthew and Kronia even, have a little bit of an advantage when it comes to stat stacking. Those particular units don't even need buffs that I just mentioned, but there is a little bit of a problem with the HP stat here, and there's nothing you can really do about it since this is 2 Nagos buffing her up. However, Mei's in a good color. Her only real hard counters are Deirdre and Julia, running Divine Naga because it disables it, dull range, and panic. So it's a problem with blade mages, but beyond that, and since those are 5-star exclusives, she's in a pretty good spot and will likely win a lot of matches on her own. Now, the C slot could also be Res Smoke, but that's still on F Grima, for instance, so I don't really see most people foddering that. But yeah, that's kind of what it is. Now, for the closest comparison, you have Delphia here. Now, previously, I would have told people not to bother with investing into Delthea because Mei just kind of does the role of a vantage mage a bit better because of the higher attack stat. As you can see here, 2 max invested units. Remember, Delthea can only take advantage of 5 flowers versus Mei's 10. And that actually gives the edge to Mei when it comes to attack, a 3 attack difference. And this could make or break some matches. A lot of my matches have come down to these sort of things. However, due to the HP stat mattering now, Delphia's in a good spot because she's less susceptible to a panic manner. So I just want to give her that sort of appreciation for those of you that did invest in Delphia. I don't think it's still worth the grail cost, honestly speaking, but it's just something to note. And all things considered, Delthea does have more bulk, so if you can't properly, like if you're fearing more one-shots, a lot of team comps are still one-shotting your unit, then Delthea is still a decent option for the Blade Mage Vantage comp. Now, a little bit of an extra cool thing I wanted to mention for you guys is this combo. The Viloria Vantage Mage combo. I haven't seen this enough, but I have gotten beaten by it, and what this involves is pretty much setting up Miracle on the Vantage Mages a lot easier. So remember, a Blade Mage increases the cooldown by 1, making it 6 on Miracle, but with Viloria it goes down to 4 on the initial match, and then you can pretty much engage on 1 unit, possibly even 2, depending on your team comp, and you can set up your Miracle a lot easier to guarantee a smooth transition on the actual Vantage turn or on turns after. If they're at full HP, what this means is they're not likely to get killed in that first engagement, and they'll go down to something like 2 or 1 charge on Miracle, and then it'll be ready for if anything follows up with like a Hardy Bearing. So you're beating Hardy Bearing with Miracle. I haven't seen this enough. I feel it's really good. It also has some innate synergy if you use Wings of Mercy and Gale Force on Viloria. So once you've once you're done the first turn and you need to clean up, Wings of Mercy Gale Force Viloria helps the Blade Mage clean up a lot better if needed, if something is further away, or it's just an easier setup because your Blade Mage is almost always going to be under half HP. Plus you got the ally support there as well. So this is just kind of interesting. I've gotten beaten by it a few times, not enough that I feel people use it enough, and I feel it is pretty good to support Blade Mages. Okay, moving on. And I swear, guys, this is not a meme. This is actually not a meme, okay? When you actually look at the stat spreads, objectively, of the blue mages, this guy has the best bulk. No, I'm not kidding. As you can see here, an Astra Blessed Oliver has 43 base res, 44 defense, 4 buffs. So this guy reaches almost 50 res after buffs and 50 defense. What? Yeah, that's actually good. He's still going to be kind of hard countered, I feel, by impact skills. But the most common one you'll see is like Tibarn. So he has the color advantage and Tibarn has low res, so you'd still kind of win against that. But if you see impact skills on something else, especially maybe like greens, then you're going to have some trouble because he's not going to win that speed check too often. For example, quick riposte here doesn't need to be quick riposte. It could be like Fierce Stance if you have no faith in Oliver doubling. Well, I don't blame you. But the thing that's also kind of interesting here is if the seasonal weapon wasn't so hard to get compared to Donald, who was running Casablanca, Oliver's blue gift is really good because it's a dull range built-in weapon. So Oliver can run dull ranged, just like you know, Sharina or Donald can with blue gift. Unfortunately, it's pretty rare. And if you have any alternatives, I'd probably recommend Blue Egg. People forget that exists as well, but healing is pretty good for a tank. So yeah, those two are really good. His HP stat is solid. The dude is so thick, it's ridiculous. He's not getting hit by any buildings. It's hard to panic him. He's got great bulk. His attack stat is decent. It's not the best, but it is decent enough to get tons of kills, especially with support. So shout out to my boy Oliver, I guess. Not even memeing. All right, I think he's the only one I'd recommend as a tank, and he's in this whole category. But moving on, here it is. So Tailtiu, AR defense. Definitely AR defense. This is including the new Sothis. So there she is. Again, not memeing when I show Sothis here on the left. I feel like a lot of people rely heavily on Ophelia for nukes, and for the most part, Ophelia is really easy to splash into a team and make her work because her conditions are really easy to work with. But I feel people forget that other blue mages exist. Delthea, from shown earlier, Fallen Delthea, and even May can work on AR defense teams now, but I feel one unit that has a really good place and people don't use enough, maybe they haven't invested into it, and I'll blame them because of the fodder, is actually Tailtiu. And Tailtiu, the reason why she's so good is because of her base effect on her toe, which isn't really talked about much or ignored. It's the only range unit in the game with Wrath built into the tome. And that's really good. Because if you have setup on Tailtiu, and it's not that hard as you might think on air defense, if you have like a lightning trap that's guarding Tailtiu from like a ranged snipe, I want to like visually show this, but Spring Water is a good example of this, where only someone like air can snipe a range unit on air defense, because there's water guarding. So what you could do is usually put like a lightning trap there, and the lightning trap would trigger. Tailtiu is a range unit, so if you're trying to snipe her, even if you were to smite on the lightning trap, you've activated advantage, and well, you're not gonna win. You don't. She has built-in Wrath, so she gets 10 bonus damage once she's low health. If you allow one turn to pass, it's not that difficult to proc Glacies on her. Believe it or not, this is the double defense mythic. So a lot of units, including Sothis, and I know that build looks really dumb, but it's needed because Sothis wants to pulse others. She doesn't want to receive pulses. You want your nukes to have low cooldown, not your melee. I mean, Seliph is pretty good, but Sothis is defense mythic. You gotta pump her HP, and that's definitely the way to do it. You don't have to use Miracle. You can use you can use like Sirius if you want to. It's not really important. What I want to mention though is the HP stat is higher than Tailtiu, even at max investment with lower investment units. If you have something like Azura, you can really round out the colors too with green, blue, and red. Sylvia is always something I recommend, but even like a +1 Axura there isn't that difficult to pump up her HP to hit on Tailtiu. Of course, you don't even need times pulse, because if you just have enough infantry pulse support, Tailtiu will end up having Glacies turn 1. And that Glacies, man, that Glacies is a lot of damage. If you have the enemy using Bolt Tower, a well set up lightning trap that's kind of like a bait and people think they can snipe your Tailtiu, this Tailtiu is gonna Glacies for pretty much over 50 damage, easily. Into like the 60s, and that's more than Ophelia, guys. Ophelia doesn't do that much damage because of the Wrath effect, the mirror impact, Brazen Attack res. Tailtiu's base res isn't the best, but it's good enough. So like, you know, don't forget this unit exists, is what I would say. I don't actually want to run into this. A properly set up team taking advantage of her tome is solid. Yeah, with that being said, guys, I mean, especially because Sothis gives res, right? You could also do this on Anima season with Duma too, if you wanted to, because the extra attack. But anyways, besides all this, that pretty much covers our blue tomes, guys. I know I didn't talk about Sias. It's pretty much the only one I ignored, but I just don't feel like he has any sort of place right now. I feel like if he gets a refine on his tome, he could probably end up being a good support unit with ploys and buffs and such, but that's pretty much all I'm going to say about that. So, thanks guys for watching. As always, leave your comments in below and tell me what you guys are interested in maybe, or thinking of building in the future. Give the video a thumbs up, sub to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.